So where does all this discussion of inequality come from? Because deep down we already saw that the problem is in the model of the caste. Let's say that idea of where a rice is born, and all that perverse logic that ends up generating a disaster like the one Argentina has. So I'm going to make this very high level. One has to check where the problem is. The reality is that the ones who are contaminating everything are the socialists. Unfortunately, after the fall of the wall, they worked very hard. It must be recognized, they all got together at the San Pablo Forum. And what did they do when the wall fell? Fidel Castro, the parasite, had no way of living. So all the socialists get together who were walking around the continent. And for what? For them to continue financing the parasite Castro. What was the goal of the San Pablo Forum? It was to achieve a Latin American Soviet Union. Basically, the San Pablo Forum had three sages. And they were inspired by Gramsci. Gramsci, a Marxist, opinioned that you have to control education, the media and culture. So you attack on those three fronts, starting to undermine the values of society. And they were very successful, because look, what did they have done in Argentina? The first one who arrived, who even surprised Fidel Castro himself, was Chávez. And then Maduro came. Who did Fidel Castro think he was going to be the first? Lula. Lula was in Brazil. And then what did the Rousseff do? Look at the case of Chile. They had Lego, if they have Bachelet, now they have Boric. Look at the case of Peru, the president they have now. That is, in Paraguay they had Higuer, in Uruguay they had Tabaré Vázquez, Papi Mujica. Then in Bolivia, Evo Morales. In Mexico, López Obrador. So do not underestimate the role of the cultural battle. The cultural battle has three stages. It has a first stage where are the proposal of policies of the Foro de San Pablo is 90% of cultural battle, 10% try to get into the state. Yes, for what? Precisely to be able to finance all these activities. That's why it's a great thing that Bolsonaro did when he became president. He cut off the funding to all the leftists. That's why they got all crazy. In other words, something that Trump realized too late. I'm giving a lecture, Professor. Can I finish? The second stage is half cultural battle. Have to advance in the productive sector with regulation. Then they begin to fix it so much that the final stage has very little cultural battle. And what is it? Expropriations. Argentina has 170 taxes. It has 70,000 regulations. And the state is much larger than 50% of the economy. Therefore, we are on fire. Good for you to wake up. That model I read, what is its origin? The origin in reality is a theory of the exploitation of Robertus and the plus values of Marx. Now, fundamental, it is based on something that is called the value of work theory. If things are worth for the amount of work used to make them, everything that is above that is exploitation according to them. There is a wonderful book by Eugene von Fomig called The Conclusion of the Marxian System. And it shows us that the Marxian system, or a Marxist system, does not make sense, that it is a failure, that it is a theoretical fraud. First, it is not true. It is not true that you only produce with physical labor. You use work, you use raw materials, you use capital. And above all, where you uses time. Therefore, it is false that you only produce with work, physical labor. and that you only have to pay back that work. The system would have to do the causation of the profit rate of all the companies, and they would all have to have the same capital-work relationship. And that is not reality. That is, in some places more capital is used than work, and in others more work is used than capital. For example, look at what services are. Services are pure work. That is also wrong. Then, if you notice, if you are going to exchange things of the same value, it doesn't make much sense. It wouldn't make much sense to exchange. I guess you don't have gold ingots there and I have gold ingots. Why would you exchange one gold ingot for another gold ingot? You realize that it doesn't make sense. It seems quite silly. That is, it doesn't make sense. That is, it doesn't make sense. The labor value theory. He changed things that he valued differently, so that both sides come out winning. There is social cooperation. Another mistake that makes me furious is this. He see that it is in a mundity. Being left-wing is a mundo, it is and dirty life. I don't wish it on anyone. Being left-wing is dirty because he see that, I mean, look, if they are workers, they are exploited. Yes. If they are businessmen, they are exploiters. And if they don't have a job, they suffer from unemployment. All life is a horrible thing. I don't know, at least to have a good time, to be liberal. I mean, but look at the contradiction, because this is the most fun of all. I mean, what is technological progress? Well, that he produces a certain quantity with a certain amount of labor. And what is technological progress? That he can, with the same amount of effort, produce much more. I mean, I imagine that you will realize that it is not the same to work with a tractor than to do it by hand, right? Then the central point is clearly that technological progress saves work. Now I ask you, because technological progress is also driven by businessmen, so they are a bunch of idiots. Because imagine they were doing so well, exporting people, and now they do things that don't exploit people. I mean, they don't realize that there is a contradiction in the terms. I mean, because they look like the army of the elites. The leftists, because they hate technological progress. I mean, they start with the fact that they don't see the work for everyone. Do you know that if that were true, and ye set the date in the year 1800, today the unemployment rate, if it were true, what the left wing would say would be 87.5%. They are crazy. That's not the case. I mean, the kids have a problem with the data. They have a problem with the data. I mean, that's why Freeman was lethal with that. He said, first the data, first the data. Well, they can't bear the data. I mean, not only the left wing. The socialists of good manners can't bear the data either. But apart from there, I want to tell you, it's more, for example, in the world of the labor value theory, there are no breaks. Because if you can put a price above the cost, that's it, the problem is over. And that's false. I mean, in real life, there are breaks. So the question is, if we are clear that from a theoretical point of view, this theory fails, if we are clear that the values they embrace are immovable, because precisely, if it failed empirically and fails theoretically, why do they continue to support it? They continue to support it because they have to defend the theory of exploitation. They have to defend it because they have to continue to defend the stupidity of plurality, Q&D resentment. There is a wonderful book by Ludwig von Mises. It's called The Anti-Capitalist Mentality. It precisely explains why people hate capitalism. Do you know what happens? Because if you go to a race and Ben Johnson puts in his best moment, you're going to be like salami. If you start playing tennis against Alcaid, against Nadal or against Federer, you're going to look like I did. The question is, given the great difference that exists between Rafael Nadal and high play, then to make it more equitable, Are we going to cut off an arm and a leg of needle? I mean, if I like basketball, and hear the others start to beat on me, I'm going to against Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan. What are we going to do? Cut off their legs? Right? Notice that in liberalism what is promoted is equality before the law, not equality of result, because equality of result is deeply unfair, because fortunately we are all different. That is, if you are born more intelligent. What are the socialists going to propose? A socialist? I checked that when they have a deep thought, they give an electrical discharge to the brain, so that they cannot have a deep thought. Then we are going to destroy everything. I mean, at the level that the brain has, less is done. I mean, how is society going to work? Poorly. If 70% of growth is explained by human capital, then the question is, why are they still supporting this, if it is an aberration? They support it because it is based on envy, on hatred, on resentment, or in the treatment of equality before the law, in death and in murder. I mean, this is like the joke of Juan and Pedro. Juan had a sheep, he was very in love with his sheep, and Diego was happy with his sheep. And the creator appears, given that Pablo saw it so badly, because he was very envious, that Juan had a sheep. And the creator says that he is going to grant him a wish. He could have asked for thousands of sheep. What did he ask for? For one sheep to die. That is the socialist. So, Diego, what is the alternative model? The alternative model is the model of freedom. It is liberalism, which, as defined in our best prose of all times, Alberto Venegas and Chichar, liberalism is the respect and restriction of the project of the next life, based on the principle of non-aggression and in defense of the right to life, liberty and property, whose institutions are private property, free market, and competition understood as free entry and exit to the market, division of labor and social cooperation, and where you can only be successful by serving another with goods of better quality or better price. And that is where the idea begins. That system is fair. That is not only more productive, but also fair, because it is sustained on the correct moral values. Because if you can only be successful serving the others with goods of better quality at better price, you are social benefactors. Because not only when you win in the market, he did it because he generated that product that is of high quality at a better price. But at the same time, you are giving sources of labor, and this allows people with that labor to do other things and generate developments in other parts of the economy. That is your social benefactors. And you have to empty your chest, because in reality you are social benefactors. And here the socialist garbage wants to convince us that you are bad. That is, the one who earns money is a demon. No, gentlemen, the demons of the economy are you who are the impoverishers. That is, those who defend freedom. And the free market are the ones who get people out of poverty. Because when liberalism started, in the 19th century, there were 1,000 million human beings living in the world, and there was 95% living in extreme poverty. That is less than $1 a day. Prior to the pandemic, with 7,800 million human beings on the planet, less than 5% were in extreme poverty. Therefore, embracing the idea of freedom is embracing in the machine of prosperity. Let's not forget the opinion of those parasites who have never generated anything. God cannot. How are they going to live their lives? To those who produce nothing, those parasites who are the political caste. However, the caste never gives in. Every time they have to choose between you and their pocket, they will always choose their pocket. They will put on their best face on the circumstance. They will show concern. But you know what? It is always theirs first.